So the Trump campaign has asked a federal judge to stop the certification of election results in Pennsylvania. Lawyers for the campaign argue that the courts need more time to rule on a range of alleged voting irregularities. Pennsylvania's Secretary of State has filed a motion for the case to be dismissed, and oral arguments are scheduled for Monday. There has been no evidence of significant voter fraud in Pennsylvania, where President-elect Joe Biden is ahead by nearly 55,000 votes. So we want to talk more about this. We want to bring in Richard Griffault. He is the Joseph P. Chamberlain Professor of Legislation at Columbia Law School. Sorry there. So let's talk about this, because I don't recall anything like this happening sort of before. But I'm going to ask you, you're the expert. Is there precedent for preventing certification on the state level? And is there a likelihood that the Trump campaign could succeed? What are the odds?
Short answer is there is no precedent for anything like this. What are the odds? Very, very long. I mean, I'm one of those never say never people when it comes to courts, but there's no precedent. They put together a long list of very minor claims, is what I would say. None of which points towards overturning a result of a margin of, I think, around 55 to 60,000 votes. So very unlikely, very, very unlikely.
Right. So, the other day when we found out from the Secretary of State in Georgia that they were going to be recounting all of the votes by hand, I thought, there's no way they have enough time. They think they do. So when it comes to finalizing the results of this election, can you just walk us through some of the pivotal dates that we sort of have to look ahead to?
Sure. So the finalization of a state's vote is what's called the certification. That's done after they've counted all the votes, and technically they've checked their results. They typically don't do a hand recount, but they might do a spot check of it to make sure that their second count matches up with the first one, or some kind of audit mechanism. Every state has some mechanism for that. The deadlines for that really range. It's a 50-state system. Each state has its own deadline. In some states, it's already occurred. Other states, it'll be over the next several weeks. A lot will be done by Thanksgiving. I think the Georgia deadline is shortly before Thanksgiving. A few will, or by November 30th, and a few will be done in early December. And then the next step is, once there's a certified result, is the meeting that will decide who the electors are. Then there'll be the meeting of the Electoral College, which is on December 14th. There's one day before that that's significant. That's December 8th, and that's the so-called Safe Harbor Day. There's a law called the Electoral Count Act, which Congress passed in the 19th century, in which Congress promises to honor the electoral votes that the state certifies if all disputes with respect to those votes are resolved based on pre-existing law by 6 days before the Electoral College's meeting, which this year is December 8th. So December 8th is called the Safe Harbor Day. December 14th is the actual day the Electoral College meets. And the certification deadlines, as I say, vary across the states, but typically will be either around Thanksgiving or around November 30th.
Okay, so December 8th is that date that sort of stuck out to me, because apart from recent actions in Pennsylvania, there are still a myriad of other legal challenges and fraud investigations that are underway with the aim, stated or unstated, of preventing a Joe Biden presidency or slow rolling it or something. Are there any states that we should pay particular attention to because perhaps the legal challenges there are at risk of extending beyond some of these crucial dates?
Legally, they all seem pretty thin. The only two states that I know of that are doing a recount are Georgia and I think Wisconsin was doing a recount. They have a couple of weeks, and I think Wisconsin, the deadline even runs into December. So I think they can do the recounts in time. The charges seem pretty thin. The only one or two times that the Trump campaign has won on things, they haven't affected any of the votes that were counted. So you'd have to and some of the margins are pretty wide. I think, as you mentioned, the Pennsylvania margin's around 55,000. The Michigan margin is about 140,000, and the other states we're talking about in the 15 and 20,000, which is actually quite a lot. And the claims have been with respect to one vote here and one vote there. So, general challenges to the way the election was run, which are not the sort of thing that a court normally pays attention to. Very open-ended, vague challenges to how the election was run.
Yeah, and we do know that, when it comes to recounts, generally the ballot count changes by a few hundred ballots if it changes. That was crucial in 2000 when
Right.
that was the
Right.
difference between the two candidates, but not this time around.
Right.
I want to ask you about something that you did bring up earlier. Concerns have also been raised about the possibility of Republican-controlled state legislatures setting aside their popular vote results and then sending their own hand-picked electors to Washington to keep President Trump in power. May seem
Yeah.
fantastical, but is that possible?
It is legally possible in that the state legislature is the decision maker for how the electors are chosen. It has never happened before that the legislature has stepped in when there's a clear winner. It hasn't even happened when stepped in when there's a contested winner. I think at least the legislatures don't do this. Who's to say what will happen now? The legislatures have never done this, have never set aside a clear popular vote winner. And ultimately, of course, it would be up to Congress to decide whether to accept something like that. But the scenario has been floated. It's kind of a dystopian scenario of the legislatures defying the votes of their own people. But again, this has been a crazy time. I'm a kind of a never say never person, but it's extremely unlikely.
I have kind of become a never say never person,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
why talking to people like you keeps me grounded. Professor Griffault, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.